Hello everyone. Today's video is another Q&A video talking about sugar-free electrolyte drinks on the carnivore diet, intestinal insufflations of ozone, and what was the last one? Oh, right, and then optimal dosing of magnesium glycinate for, well, I think for constipation. Anyways, we'll get into it. Just before jumping into the video, as per usual, nothing I say should be construed as medical advice. This is for informational purposes only. If you need medical advice, please talk to your healthcare provider to get that advice. And if you don't mind taking a quick moment to please like, share, subscribe, and or post a quick comment on the video, I would really appreciate it. So thanks in advance for taking a second to do that. So the first question was on a video I posted quite some time ago. About is stevia okay on the carnivore/keto diet, and does it kill Lyme? 1.7 thousand or 1.7 thousand views, so quite a few for one of my videos. Pretty happy about that. So thanks for all the love on that one. And so the question is, can I do sugar-free electrolyte drinks on the carnivore diet? So of course, as per usual. Thank you for the question, and as per usual, I can't give any direct advice to anyone, but basically anything that I would have said about stevia in this video would apply to sugar-free electrolyte drinks as a rule, because those sugar-free electrolyte drinks, I mean, hopefully it would be a more naturally occurring sugar-free sweetener, so something like xylitol or erythritol or one of those sugar alcohols, but ideally not something like aspartame or sucralose or whatnot, which I understand to be not the healthiest options per se. I mean, with the carnivore diet, I don't remember what I said in this video. I posted it a year ago, apparently, according to YouTube, so I don't know exactly what I said, but with the carnivore diet, it really depends on what the goals are with a carnivore diet. If the goal of being on a carnivore diet is to reduce inflammation, try to get autoimmune disease under control, help with allergies, that type of thing. I just have a general anti-inflammatory effect in the body. Something like, a sugar-free alcohol, like a substitute would be, or a sugar-free sweetener substitute would probably not make a big difference in the grand scheme of things, unless a person happened to be really sensitive to polyols, of which that's what sugar-free electrolytes are. If they're from like that type of a sugar alcohol, if they're sugar alcohol. If there was a patient who was doing the carnivore diet to help with their chronic digestive issues, same answer, probably wouldn't really make a big difference in my experience, unless again they were sensitive to polyols. Some people are very sensitive to what are called FODMAPs, these fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. And so if they're sensitive to those polyols, then like xylitol or erythritol, and then some fruits and vegetables, like say sweet potatoes, for example, if memory serves, contain polyols, that could potentially cause an issue like gas and bloating. That being said, in my experience, most people who are working with a carnivore diet are probably not going to be negatively impacted by a sugar-free electrolyte drink. But that being said, if someone was working with a carnivore diet to really try to regulate their blood sugar, then my understanding is that even if something is sugar-free, if it has a really sweet taste to it, it can to some extent potentially still contribute to some blood sugar dysregulation, because even that sweetness taste, to my understanding, will encourage more insulin release, possibly some increased inflammation, that type of thing. So it would really depend on how often someone was consuming them, why they're doing the carnivore diet. But generally speaking, when my patients go on a carnivore diet or a similar type of diet, if they say like, oh, can I work with a sugar-free electrolyte drink, I usually don't really have any major concerns about that, but just the good old caveat of as long as you tolerate it well, I don't usually see any issue with that. So thank you for the question. The next question was posted on one of my other videos about is ozone therapy safe, and the question was about is rectal ozone safe? So rectal ozone, or intestinal insufflations, as we sometimes call them to flower it up a little bit, but basically, as it suggests, that process involves administering a mix of ozone and oxygen gas rectally, typically using a catheter. With that method, of course, there's going to be maybe certain circumstances where it wouldn't be safe, but generally speaking, rectal ozone is actually one of the most common form, or it's a very common form of administration. To my understanding, in South America, not the entire continent, but in certain South American countries, I believe Brazil being one of the one of the major ones. It's quite a common therapy, and that is a common route of administration. And when I've gone to ozone conferences and there's lecturers about different methods of ozone administration, the South American lecturers are typically always talking about ozone, rectal ozone or intestinal ozone insufflations, because it is a very effective way of getting systemic ozone into the body. When you look at the research literature on ozone therapy, there's lots and lots and lots of human clinical trials looking at the impact of intravenous ozone therapy. But there are also many trials looking at rectal insufflations of ozone as well. And generally speaking, they show comparable results. The mechanism of action, I believe, based on what I've seen in the literature, is a little bit different, but ultimately the ozone is able to react with compounds in the lining of the intestine, creating a byproduct called ozonides. Those get absorbed into the bloodstream, and then they go systemic in the body. When the ozone is being administered intravenously, it reacts with the double bonds in triglycerides and amino acids and cell membranes that are in the, or sorry, not triglycerides, rather short chain fatty acids that are in the blood, and then those create ozonides, and they're already in the bloodstream, so they're also going systemic. So they're working through very similar mechanisms. So is it safe? Well, what's safe? There's nuances with everyone, but it is generally an accepted way of using systemic ozone. And generally, ozone has a very, very low side effect profile. Of course, it has to be done in a safe, responsible manner. Proper volumes and concentration, all of that. I see that my computer, which is not ozonated, is going to die. So let me just quickly read the last one here. Thank you for the last question. The last question here is on apparently one of my very popular videos. My oldest son likes to make fun of me for having a popular video that's called The Best Magnesium for Constipation, but 8,400 views. It's a pretty popular one as far as my channel goes. So thank you. It says here, thank you so much for the video. What dose of elemental magnesium glycinate would you recommend? So I'm just going to quickly turn off my computer here so that it doesn't completely die and make me log into everything yet again, all of my websites and all of that, and enter all my passwords. When it comes to magnesium, just a little point of differentiation that sometimes folks get a little bit confused about because it's a little confusing. Whenever we're taking magnesium, there's always an elemental magnesium component, and then there's whatever that magnesium is bound to. Magnesium citrate, there's the elemental, like the element itself, periodic table of elements, there's that magnesium, and then it's bound to a citrate molecule. Or there's magnesium glycinate, where it's magnesium bound to the amino acid glycine, so it's been glycinated. Or there's magnesium taurate, where the magnesium has been bound to the amino acid taurine. And so whenever we're taking a magnesium supplement, magnesium is always chelated or bound to something else. And so it's important to be, when we're talking about magnesium, at least from a clinical perspective, knowing what the elemental amount is, because you could look at the label and see, oh, each capsule gives me 800 milligrams of say magnesium glycinate. Well, there's not 800 milligrams of magnesium in there. There's usually about maybe 160 to 180 milligrams of magnesium, of the elemental magnesium, and then the other 620 or 640 milligrams is all that glycine amino acid. So it's actually like a magnesium glycine combination. It's the two supplements in one sort of thing. So that's the differentiation or the distinction point there between talking about elemental magnesium. As far as the dosage for elemental magnesium, again, as I predictably am going to say here, I can't give any specific advice about dosages for folks. What I will say, though, is I have posted another video pretty recently. It was another Q&A, and part of the topic was about, should everybody be taking magnesium? And in that video, I talk about how with my patients, I'll oftentimes recommend that when I think they might have a magnesium deficiency, I'll ask them to build up to their bowel tolerance of magnesium to see, how much magnesium can they tolerate before they get loose stools. Is it 1 capsule, 2 capsules, 4 capsules, 6 capsules? Sometimes it's 8 or 10 capsules. And in my clinical experience, that gives us some really direct insight into exactly how magnesium deficient do they seem to be. And then whatever dose they can comfortably tolerate without it actually causing loose stool, that seems to be the type of dose that we'll typically use. So when patients ask me, how much magnesium do I take? I'll typically say, I don't know, let's ask your body and find out, and then we'll typically do a bowel tolerance test. So the dose really varies, and over time, as the patient's becoming more magnesium replete, then they aren't likely going to need as many capsules or as much of their magnesium powder, whatever they're taking. So thank you as always for the questions. If you have any questions on these topics or anything else, please post in the comment section below, and I will do my best to answer as soon as I can.